My name is Dan Edge, and I'm a professional actor for my sins, which means that I've been able to do lots of brilliant, weird and wonderful things with my career. Well, to be honest, I'd been acting for a long time. I mean, I started doing drama classes at school in year 5, so that would have made me, I think that would have made me, 7 maybe? I guess. And it was always my favourite subject at school. Always my favourite subject at school. No questions, no bones about it. I mean, I enjoyed other stuff, I enjoyed history and I enjoyed other things, but drama was always my go-to subject. And then, so I thought, like most people, I would try it. So I did A-levels as well. I did A-levels in drama and theatre studies after I did my drama GCSE. And then I applied to go to university to do a drama/acting degree because I applied for different things. And I'll be honest, it didn't quite go to plan. So I went to uni, eventually, after spending 2 years jumping from job to job to job. I ended up teaching drama and then decided no, it was something I had to go and pursue and I had to become a professional actor. So when I turned 21, I was a mature student at 21. I went to the University in Northampton and did a drama degree for 3 years. And then, became a professional actor just before I graduated, which was I was 21, so I graduated in 2008. First job, it's really unusual actually. Basically, when you're doing your degree, everybody says to you, you're going to audition for stuff, you're not going to get it, you might not get an agent straight away, you might not, any of this. And I was really lucky. I picked up an agent really quickly and he sent me for an audition for a corporate video, so videos for a business, and this business was one of the big banks. I don't know if we're allowed to name them, but it was for one of the big banks. Okay, so it was for a bank then called Lloyds TSB because they were like one thing. And it was a corporate video because they were sponsoring some Paralympic athletes or potential Paralympic athletes. And it was a corporate video, and I played wheelchair basketball when I was growing up, and they wanted me to do a video with an up-and-coming wheelchair basketball player that they thought might make it to the Olympic Games in 2012. Filmed it, did it, it was all good. It was my very first audition for a professional job that my agent sent me for. So I kind of blew out the water everything my lecturer said. Doesn't mean everybody's going to do that, but I was very fortunate. But then what happened was, filmed it, did it, edited it, brilliant, never got shown. So nobody saw it. As well as being an actor, you tend to find that your skills diversify. It's one of the joys of being an actor that you can take lots of skills to lots of things. And I grew up watching what is now the WWE was the WWF when I was growing up on television. And I kind of fell into professional wrestling. I was in sixth form, and a friend of mine in sixth form who was a big guy, he's 6'3" and 18 stone, sort of looked at me and said, "Dan, you're into wrestling, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "There's a local training school, don't you?" And I sort of looked at him as if he'd said something ridiculous, because I live in Northampton, which is a town in the middle of England. Why the heck would we have a professional wrestling training school? But I went along and worked my backside off, convincing the trainer that although I'm disabled, I was going to be good to be a wrestler. Took weeks of just falling and physical stuff, and then I trained for 2 years before I then went onto the professional wrestling circuit here in the UK, and was fortunate enough just before filming that Lloyds TSB commercial to have a quick tour in the States while I was doing my uni degree. So, because my uni said you need to go and do some work experience in a job you might want to do. So I went to the US and wrestled for a bit on work experience, which is a little bit crazy, but I did it. It went quiet for a bit. like acting generally does. It's very, very cyclical. You know, you might work and get a really good job, but then you might not work for a couple of months as an actor or whatever, until more auditions come along. And then eventually more auditions come along, and it's very much a system of you audition, your audition is basically your job interview for every job. You probably do more job interviews as an actor or auditions as an actor than anybody in any other profession. You also get told no quite a bit, but essentially you keep auditioning and you keep going from job to job to job. You might be really lucky, you might go to Hollywood straight away. Who knows? But you know, there are lots of jobbing actors like me that go from job to job to job, and every job is different. I've been fortunate to do amazing things, like I've been a penguin called Stanley. I've worked in theatre shows for young people with profound and multiple learning disabilities and difficulties in their first experience of theatre ever. I've done TV commercials for large gambling companies. Don't encourage gambling, but you know, had to do the work. I've done TV commercials for Christmas shopping centres over Christmas. You might have seen me in your local area if you had like that local shopping centre in your area. I've done corporate videos for companies like the National Grid. I've done stuff with, I did Paralympic presenter training with Channel 4 to try and present the Paralympic Games. Didn't happen, but what did happen was I became an aerial performer in the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games in 2012. So I was swinging across the Olympic Stadium on something that they use on pianos to lower them out of windows. So yeah, my career's been wide and varied. I've done voiceover stuff, I've done motion capture stuff. This is the thing as an actor, there's so many things you can do, and I've been fortunate to do quite a few different things. You know, motion capture is happening more and more and more. I mean, if you're a fan of the Marvel movies like me, they use motion capture hand over fist. For example, Iron Man, whenever you see Tony Stark in the helmet and you see him talking to Jarvis and you see all those graphics, that's all green screen and motion capture. He's wearing cameras in front of his face. You look at Thanos, that's all green screen and motion capture. So motion capture is definitely a thing, but it also means you can be an actor and work in video games, which is where my motion capture work started, because I did a workshop to do motion capture in video games. And because my physicality is so different, because I'm disabled and I use a wheelchair, I have cerebral palsy, everybody went, oh my god, you'll make a really great zombie because your physicality is so different. I'm yet to be cast as a zombie, but it's on the bucket list. But yeah, in terms of how motion capture works, you have to put on these really weird like wetsuit things that then have loads of like silver balls attached. And then special cameras will track your movement. So it's all about you being physical as a performer and being able to move in the space and act out the scenarios that the characters are going to act out in the game, so that these cameras can then capture them and put them into your game. So whether it's special effects or whether it's video games, motion capture is becoming a massive part of the acting industry. So have a go. Rather than the Olympics, I work with the Paralympics, so I work with the cool guys in the wheelchairs and false legs and all those kind of crazy things. So this was a really different job for me. Essentially, my agent phoned me and he said, Dan, they're doing some work on the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games in 2012 in London, and they want to see how wheelchairs, a whole group of wheelchairs, can do mass choreography. So that means choreography with loads of different people in wheelchairs. Could they get it to work? Could they get it to work? Because they're going to do it on the stadium floor. While I was there, somebody looked at me and realised that I was really physical because of my days in wrestling and all that kind of stuff, and said, would you be interested in working? I actually had another job. I was due to go to Germany to do some performance art where I laid on the floor as part of an art exhibition. I kid you not. So I said maybe. And then they eventually got back to me because it was a long old process. And they asked me if I'd be interested in doing aerial work. So that's stuff like trapeze and silks and hoops and all those people that fly through the air. I sort of looked at them and said, never ever in my life have I done that. I don't know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And they said, don't worry, we're going to train you. So I auditioned for the job, thankfully got it, and then started my training to be an aerial performer in the last week of April. We did 5 days a week, 5, 6, 7, 8 hour days of just physical training in a special secret training place that they'd locked us in because nobody was allowed to say anything or do anything. And then we moved locations and stuff when the rehearsals got a bit bigger, and the ceremony was on the 29th of August. So it was a bit crazy in the fact that everybody was kind of sectioned off and did their own bit, but then everybody came together as the ceremony got closer. And you know, I can tell you lots of weird stories of how Olympic closing ceremony was going on the same time as Paralympic opening ceremony was going on, so the rehearsals crossed over, and we'd quite often just see David Beckham walking through because his wife was there as part of the Spice Girls, Victoria Beckham, and they were in closing ceremony. So it was a really surreal, crazy time, but it was amazing. You know, I got to perform in front of 70,000 people in the Olympic Stadium live, and nearly 1 billion people around the world. So it was absolutely mad. But one of the best experiences I've ever had. And when I got into acting, never did I think that would be something that I'd do. But you learn very quickly as an actor. If somebody says, do you want to learn how to do something? You go, yeah, alright. Because you never know when you're going to use that skill. And since then, since learning to do that, I've done other theatre jobs where I've done aerial work. So it's all about diversifying. At the moment, again, I've talked about diversifying. So as well as being an actor and auditioning for stuff as it comes through, you may see me, you know, briefly on some of the Paralympic stuff that comes out this year. As well as doing acting stuff, I'm now also into consulting. So I now work with film, TV and theatre companies and tell them best practice and what's best to do in terms of working with deaf and disabled performers, in terms of representation, in terms of language to use, in terms of how to make the sets accessible for deaf and disabled talent. So to do things like make sure the wheelchair user can get round set, make sure that the deaf actor has got sign language interpreters, make sure that the visually impaired person has got a guide, and everybody's access needs are met. So I now consult as well as act. It's all about diversifying and I won't say never saying no, because there's some things you do have to say no to, but just being aware that although you want to be an actor, it's going to open so many potential doors for you. You might end up being a director, a writer, a choreographer. So acting is a great profession, and you may be fortunate enough to, you know, act for all of your days and do nothing else. But you tend to find that actors especially diversify into other fields for sure. When should you say no? If it's a project that you don't feel comfortable doing, for example, I got offered a project recently that was of a really sexual nature and I didn't feel comfortable doing it, so I said no. I've been offered other jobs where they're small budget jobs and it would cost me more to do the job than I'd be earning. So unless it's a job that I really want to do, and I do some jobs for less money because it's a job I'm really excited about and it's something I want to be a part of, but there were times when I've had to say no to jobs because it just made no financial sense. You know, the idea of being an actor, as much as it is something you love, is also a profession. and you deserve to be paid well for your work. And so many people forget that, and so many people take advantage of the fact that, you know, people love acting as a job and really want to do it. But, you know, you learn, especially as you get older, that you need to value yourself and the time and the effort that you're putting in. So it's all about personally what you're comfortable with and what you're happy to do, but also don't be scared to say no. Being a disabled actor does come with challenges. The main challenge being the fact that there's not enough representation of deaf and disabled people on stages and screens. There just isn't. And then quite often, when there is representation of deaf and disabled people, although it's getting better slowly, there are still loads of examples where deaf and disabled characters are played by non-disabled people. Now, there's lots of arguments of, oh, it's acting, it's this, it's that, it's, you know, anybody should be able to play anybody. But sadly, it doesn't work like that. Nobody turns around to me and says, Dan, we've got this great role for you. It's a non-disabled person, so what we're going to do is we're going to green screen your body out, stick your head on that person, and make you a non-disabled character. But what they will do is take a non-disabled actor, green screen their arm out to make them an amputee. So when you've got that kind of imbalance, and there's less deaf and disabled roles on TV anyway, way less than is actually in society, because in the UK alone, if you include hidden disabilities, long-term health conditions, so on and so on, you're looking at about 1 in every 4 to 5 people is disabled. Now, if you watch your screens and your stages, you cannot tell me that 1 in 5 characters you see on TV is disabled, or 1 in 5 people you see is disabled. So there's a big discrepancy in the arts and reality, which is why I've campaigned for so many years and now consult to try and make that better. So yeah, it has its challenges. It also has its challenges that in terms of being a disabled performer, there's lots of stereotypical stories that people like to tell. Like, oh my god, my disability is so terrible that I feel the need to die. No. Or, oh my god, I'm disabled, the world hates me, I hate the world, so I'm going to become a supervillain. Oh, please. And I love comic books, so I love supervillains. But the fact is, there's a big stereotype around, you know, people that have a disability of some kind hating the world and becoming the villains of Bond films or superhero films. It's a big stereotype. And then there's the inspiration stereotype, where he goes, oh my god, look at the amazing disabled person and how they've overcome their disability. Okay, that's problematic on a whole different level. I would rather tell the story of, guess what? I'm a brother, I'm a friend, I'm a lover, I'm a dad. I'm not a dad, but, you know, acting. That just happens to be disabled, and it's not brought up in the storyline. It's not made a huge thing of. I'm an actor at the end of the day. I want to tell stories. And sometimes, you know, my impairment, my cerebral palsy, the fact that I'm a part-time wheelchair user might come up in the story. But it doesn't have to every single time. Okay, so there's loads of disabled actors out there doing amazing work, some of which you might know. You know, there's Ruth Madeley in Years and Years, there's Liz Carr in Silent Witness, there's Matt Fraser, who was in American Horror Story, and loads of other stuff besides. There's Warwick Davis, who was in Star Wars. There's loads of us. I'm not one of those super well-known ones, but I'm still there and I'm still making a living. And it's the same for everybody. And the more of us there are, the more roles we can audition for, the more of us there will be on TV, stage and screen. So it's a hard career, but not an impossible one, you know. And it's a case of, even if you are a wheelchair user, you could still play any character in a video game. If you're a voiceover artist, if you're a voiceover actor, you can be anybody. because your avatar can run, jump, swim, do whatever they want your avatar to do, fly, whatever you like, and you can voice it over as long as you can get into an accessible voiceover studio. So it's a difficult career for sure, but it's a difficult career for anybody. Just don't discount yourself. If you want to work with deaf and disabled actors, just write the character the same as you would anyone else. You don't necessarily have to write a character or create a character that's a wheelchair user or that's deaf or visually impaired or, you know, has a learning disability or is on the autism spectrum. You don't have to write specifically about that. They can just be a friend, a lover, whatever that just happens to be a wheelchair user on the spectrum, whatever that may be. So just write good characters and decide you want disabled and deaf talent to play them. It's as simple as that. In terms of actually on set or on stage, there might be a few more, technical things you need to consider, i.e. if you're working with a deaf performer, you'll need to make sure that there's somebody there that can translate into BSL so you can communicate with them. Or if you're working with a wheelchair user, you might need to make sure that your stage or your set is accessible for wheelchair users and they're not having to climb, mountains of wires. But that's technical stuff. In terms of working with deaf and disabled talent though, treat them like all your other talent. Just make sure you have open conversations about their access needs being met, and they'll probably be better than half your non-disabled talent. Commitment, love of the job, and resilience, because you're going to get told no a lot. Go to as many youth theatres, training schemes, and everything as possible. Technically nothing, but if you can get drama degrees and drama A-levels, do it. Or acting A-levels, acting degrees. Anything from absolutely nothing to millions of pounds. Go to youth theatres, volunteer for arts organisations, learn how the industry works. If you can get on young filmmaker schemes, do it. Everything from Hollywood movies to changing up your career to writers, directors, to acting on soaps. Loads of different options, just depends which way your career goes. Swings and roundabouts. It can offer loads because you can say I don't want to work, but when you're not working you're not getting paid, and the industry might turn around and go, we want you to work now, and you have to cancel your plans. Final thought. So this career is an absolute roller coaster. You'll have the highest highs, the lowest lows, you'll occasionally go through a loop-the-loop, and you'll never quite know where it's going to take you. But there's nothing quite like it. You'll end up doing things you never thought you'd do, and you're going to love doing them. So yeah, think about it.